Good morning. I want to start, before my script starts, to remind everyone that this little section with the rise of COVID and flu is for people wearing masks. We have masks at the greeting tables, so thank you for knowing that. Welcome to our Sunday worship service. I'm Martha Schmidt, and I'll be your celebrant this morning. I am a long-time UU. I think we came here about 40 years ago. We had 4 little girls. The oldest was a first grader. And I said to my husband, who was a new practicing doctor, that whatever town we go to, I want to find a church that we can raise our daughters in. Because I hadn't grown up in a church. I'd grown up with Christian Science talk in my home. I knew about Christian Science, but I didn't go to church. And as a young woman at college, I found I was quite uncomfortable being approached by the very assertive Christian folks on campus about my beliefs, and that if I didn't believe in God and Jesus, I was going to go to hell. So I resolved that my family, my young daughters, would grow up thinking and talking about what they believed in. Now, not all my daughters came to church here, but we certainly had Unitarian Universalist conversations at home. Some of them participated more in church than others, but they would all now say that they're Unitarians. So I guess I have been very involved in the life of the church, and it has meant a great deal to me. I've grown as a person here, and I feel your love, and I think the work we do here is very, very important. So I'm very glad you're all here. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad you are here. If you've come in person, you should have received a welcome packet with an information card in it, which you can fill out and drop in the offering basket, and we'll be in touch with you to support you in finding your way into our community. If you are joining us online, there's a link on our website to an electronic version of that same card. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags on, and they'll reach out to you. Whether you are new or not, please consider staying for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in our Zoom room. And now let's say our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, Zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now we'll take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you're at home, please turn on your camera and now wave at us. Now, people who are attending the service in our building, it's your turn to wave. And we do have an announcement. We have a special guest today. You've noticed the quilt by the heart. We are going to invite Lisa Carly. Did I say that right? Forward, and she's going to tell us about this. Carloy.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for hosting our beautiful quilt. So, as you know, book banning is a popular thing going on in our culture right now, and it's alarming, right, in and of itself, but it's also alarming, I think, because of those whose books and voices are being targeted, right? Primarily the books that are being banned or or questioned are books that have to do with LGBTQ plus issues or race issues. And so that's kind of an alarming development in our country. So I am actually a congregant at the Community Congregational United Church of Christ in Pullman. And this summer, our interim minister, Gary Jewell, he said, well, summertime, everybody leaves town, people are on vacation, it's all very fluid in terms of, what numbers we have at church. He said, let's try different things. Let's try doing some church services differently. And so he said, anybody have any ideas? And I was like, yeah, I have an idea. So I thought, one of the things that we could do during church services is use our hands for God's work. And so I proposed that we actually develop a worship service around making a quilt, and making a quilt that spoke to our Christian values and sort of a faith into action activity. And so what I ended up doing was going to the library and going to bookstores and taking pictures of the books that are on the lists of bans today, not the ones that have been historically banned necessarily, some of those are on there, but really, finding the books that are being targeted at different schools and libraries across the country today. And the idea was to have a table set up along the center aisle in our church, invite the congregants to join the table and sew a quilt together that really showed our values of being with the people and the voices that are being, attempted to be silenced. So this accomplished a couple of things. One, I think it was kind of a nice faith into action activity. It gave us a very interactive way to worship together. And it also gave us an opportunity to actually see the books that are being banned, because I don't know about you, but a lot of the books that are on the lists are not ones that many people in our church are necessarily familiar with. And so it gave us a chance to actually see the spines of the books. And the way we did it was we had different stations. It became an assembly line, so people could choose different things. So we taught people how to sew by hand to start the worship. And then we basically just had the book spines, the strips, on the table. And so somebody would take two, they would pin them together, they would hand them to somebody who would draw the stitching line, and they would hand them to somebody with pre-threaded needles, and then we would stitch them together. My mother, ironed the seam open and then took it back to the front of the table. And so, what was 1 and 1 became 2, 2 and 2 became 4, and we basically made the stack of books. And during service, and so Gary Jewell, he worked a sermon around the idea of being seen and knowing our names, right, and thinking about that. And so that was, I think, very fitting. One of the things that made me think about banning books as sort of the central idea is that I really think that banning books robs us of the opportunity to walk in other people's shoes. It robs us of the opportunity to understand the experience of others who have different lives than ours. And I think that it also gives us the opportunity to really think about those people and those experiences and to celebrate all of God's people. And so if you take a look, the theme on the quilt is "We're with the band." And on the library cards at the bottom, it says, "We support freedom to read." And part of our mission then is to have our quilt go visit other congregations such as your own. And we have library cards for each of the stops and places that it's been. And so we're with the band. Well, who is we? Well, if you would like to join the we of We're with the Band books, there's a library card on the table. There's also some handouts with a little synopsis about what the book is, what it's about, why it was challenged or banned, and what we think it would be lost by having this book removed from public spaces. So I invite you to join the band, right? Well, actually join against banning, right? Join the banned books and sign if you'd like to kind of make a public declaration. So thank you for hosting the book, and thank you for caring about this issue.
We preface our service by acknowledging our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called the Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders. the Palouse and the Shishumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. We are hoping that the people joining us on Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. As they light the chalice, we'll say our words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
We get it? We got it. Okay. Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. The Reverend A. Powell Davies, who served at All Souls Church in New York City in the 1940s and 50s, used to say, life is just an opportunity to grow a soul. For me, this quote encapsulates one of my bedrock beliefs, that whatever life throws at us, losses, challenges, conflict, drama, joy, beauty, the full range of human experience, everything can be used as fodder for spiritual growth. As I said last week, I don't mean to imply that bad things happen for a reason or are part of some grand plan, but I want to bear witness to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. I've seen over and over again that when we make the choice to do so, we can learn through what we go through, absolutely anything we go through. I've also seen that when we make a different choice, when we cling to the way things were or hold tight to a sense of certainty, we can cause ourselves unnecessary suffering. We can become stuck and bitter or exhausted and burnt out. When we try to exert control over our external circumstances, we can expect at best minimal success and maximum frustration. Meanwhile, when we give our attention and our energy to our internal landscape, to our own growth, our own spiritual development, we're able to navigate our lives with increasing grace and flexibility. It's a more effective way of being human. So today's service is meant to be a reminder to all of us to keep open minds, to keep tender hearts, to be ready to live and learn and grow through these crazy times we're living in. But let's start by singing. Hymn number 1020, Wo Ya Ya. It'll be in your teal hymnal, or you can just sing the words on the screen.
It will
Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on the screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called the Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is Family Promise of the Palouse, whose mission is to empower families with children experiencing homelessness to achieve sustainable independence for a more promising future. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the drop-down line on the menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take the offering. Now I invite Fran Rodriguez forward. She's a member of our pastoral care team, and she will lead the lighting of candles of joys and sorrow.
I invite you now to sink just a little deeper into the spirit of meditation or prayer. This is a piece called All That We Do Not Know by my colleague, the Reverend Susan Suchaki Brown. Day by day, month by month, year by year, we are confronted with all that we do not know, that we do not understand, that we do not grasp. Sometimes we are humbled by this knowledge and say, it is too wonderful for me to comprehend, but I know this universe is more grand and more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. And I give thanks for the blessing of being here and seeing, hearing, experiencing, and sensing all that is so wonderful around and within me. Sometimes we are saddened by this knowledge and say, may the burden of hurt and suffering be removed from us. Grant us the courage, the wisdom, and fortitude to hear the pain of living. Send us those who will carry our burdens for a short while, and send us those who will comfort us with their healing words and thoughts. Sometimes we are angered by this knowledge and say, in the name of justice and compassion, if it be in our power, give us the strength and ability to right the wrongs, for we do not, nor does any person in the world, deserve this. Sometimes we are made joyous by this knowledge and we say, we rejoice and cheer for our glorious life. Sometimes we are made curious by this knowledge and say, holy and inexplicable is this life. I have no idea what happened or how it happened, but somehow, some way, something changed, and I am free to explore new ways of being. Please always let me continue to search for the unknown in myself and others. In the silence, let us rest in the presence of all we do not and cannot know. Amen, and blessed be. You know, when Sam's not here, I miss the live music, but also it's kind of fun to do stuff like that sometimes. Our reading today comes from a keynote speech by the Reverend Dr. Kendall Gibbons. She titled it, "On Becoming a Grown-Up, Spiritual Maturity with and Without God." She writes, "Just as we grow and mature physically and keep ourselves healthy with regular exercise, just as we grow and mature mentally and develop our minds through learning, just as we grow and mature emotionally and deepen our relationships by intentionally sharing ourselves with others, just as we grow and mature ethically and build moral character from the values to which we are loyal, so I am persuaded that we also grow and mature spiritually as well. You can go to the gym to work out. You can go to school to improve your mind. You can see a therapist to resolve emotional roadblocks. Religious community, whatever its flavor, is here to help us deepen and celebrate and be nourished by our authentic experiences of reverence. Religious community exists to hold out the possibility and the importance of that inner ripening, to suggest that our humanity is most fully realized as we become more spiritually mature. This is the quality that the great mystics and sages have easily recognized in one another across all the varieties of religious and cultural traditions. It's what enables us to name Rumi and Gandhi and Schweitzer and Julian and the Dalai Lama all in the same breath. The lack of it turns faith into pogroms and witch hunts and terrorism. It is, I suggest to you, the necessary foundation of our ability to live together as humanists and theists, skeptics and mystics, prophets and seekers, all in this liberal religious covenant community of ours. So this morning I'm going to talk about how we develop spiritual maturity. What does it look like? How do we make progress? And why would we bother? The classic work on spiritual development is Stages of Faith by James Fowler. He describes the typical human spiritual journey this way. We begin as very young children in what Fowler calls intuitive projective faith, incapable of abstract thought and with little capacity to understand other people's points of view. As toddlers and preschoolers, we experience faith as a set of general impressions and rituals handed down to us from our parents or other caregivers. At about age 6, we move into what Fowler labels the mythic literal stage of faith. Children at this age think in concrete and literal ways. Faith consists of the stories told and the rituals practiced. Teachers and other trusted adults become sources of spiritual truth alongside our parents. As we enter our teenage years, we enter the synthetic conventional stage of faith. We're able to think abstractly, understand metaphor, and recognize that other people have different perspectives. At this stage, we claim our faith as our own. However, typically the faith we're claiming is one we've been taught And the source of authority is still outside of us. It lies with our parents, our teachers, or a particular text or set of doctrines. This is the first stage where people can get stuck. Fowler writes that people who don't progress beyond this stage are aware of having values and normative images. They can articulate and defend them and feel a deep emotional investment in them, but they haven't made the value system as a system the object of reflection. So they accept what's handed to them, they're attached to what's handed to them, but they don't necessarily reflect on what that means. Now, those who are willing to reflect, to question, to articulate doubt, and claim their own authority move into the next stage, which Fowler labels individuative reflective. In this stage, we deconstruct our faith. We claim the parts that make sense to us, we reject the parts that don't. If we don't like the answers to our questions, we often wind up leaving our childhood faith community, or even rejecting the whole notion of religion, faith, or spirituality. Now, this is the stage where some Unitarian Universalists get stuck. Many UUs are refugees from other religious traditions and are turned off or even triggered by language, rituals, or liturgies that remind them of the faith they came out of. I have a colleague who has a congregant who writes him a long letter every single time this colleague uses the word God on a Sunday morning. Now, this kind of rigidity can become a sort of fundamentalism. We insist on the correctness of our own perspective to the point where we can't listen to other people's. We're unwilling to translate, to find points of connection or compromise. The road to spiritual maturity requires that we engage other people's perspectives with curiosity and humility. As Yehuda Amichai puts it in the poem, The Place Where We Are Right, from the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard, but doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. So, keeping in mind that this is what I think, but I may be wrong, that's what keeps us from getting stuck in this stage and leads us to the next, which Fowler labels conjunctive faith. Most of us reach this stage somewhere around our early 30s. It's a more comfortable place where we're okay with the fact that we don't have all the answers and more or less okay with the answers we do have. It's characterized by openness, an openness to other people's perspectives and new ideas, and a sense that community is an important part of our faith formation. We value listening to and learning from one another, not as a way of moving away from our own beliefs, but as a way of testing and deepening our understandings. This is where most of us in this congregation live. Now, over time, if we continue to engage with life and each other and stay faithful to the journey, some of us may move into what Fowler calls universalizing faith. People who reach this stage are able to relate to and connect with people at every other stage of faith without condescension. They become spiritual teachers and they live life with lightness and grace. Think Mother Teresa, Thich Nhat Hanh, Bishop Desmond Tutu. Now, one roadmap that might help us move from conjunctive faith toward universalizing faith are this list of 12 characteristics of spiritual maturity identified by the Reverend Dr. Kendall Gibbons, the author of our reading. Now, Kendall is one of my most revered and respected colleagues. She is highly principled, incredibly intelligent, remarkably articulate. Theologically, she identifies as a humanist, so she formulated this list of characteristics of spiritual maturity intentionally in such a way that they don't center or even really require a belief in God. The first characteristic she identifies comes from the ancient Greek tradition, sophrosyne. Kendall writes, sophrosyne is often badly translated as temperance, but a better definition of it is self-awareness in the service of intention. It's about being able to take both our impulses and our deeper enduring desires, as well as the consequences of our actions, as objects of reflection. The development of sophrosyne means that you are constantly paying attention to the impact of your actions on others, on the world, and on the goals to which you have said you are committed. It's the wisdom which underlies the question, and how is that working out for you? The second characteristic on her list is reverence, which Kendall defines as an orientation toward wonder, gratitude, and awe. Spiritually mature people don't take much for granted. They're awake to the abundant miracles that exist everywhere we look. Third, Kendall lifts up surrender. You might ask, surrender to whom or what? And obviously for Kendall, this isn't a surrender to a deity, but rather, in her words, obedience to reality, to the facts of our situation as finite beings, and to the laws of nature and science. In other words, surrender means accepting that we don't get to be in charge and we don't get to have all the answers. Kendall continues, in truth, there's a great peace of mind in the recognition that neither you nor I is running the universe. Once that fact is established, we can take our desire for things to be different as an object of reflection rather than remaining embedded in our fantasies. Our authentic power is founded upon the ability to surrender to the facts and create change by figuring out what actually works. Next, Kendall names the ability to honor complexity, paradox, and ambiguity as a stepping stone on the path to spiritual maturity. She writes, spiritual maturity honors complexities and ambiguities rather than trying to flatten them into some more easily managed mental structure. By taking the confusion and conflicting impulses that arise in response to life's ambiguous realities as an object of reflection, rather than seeking false clarity or simple solutions and sulking about the discomfort of that complexity, we choose to grow. On the one hand, we humans evolved to put things into categories and identify patterns. We need to be able to do this if we're going to function, because we're just not capable of fully grasping the complexity of every situation without becoming paralyzed. And yet, we also always need to remember that there's a complexity beyond our comprehension, that just behind our categories, that always exists. And we need to hold that as we are moving through our lives. Next, Kendall identifies an ability to embrace the world's suffering and pain and transform it through our consciousness to harmony and peace as another sign of spiritual maturity. She uses the Buddhist concept of Tonglen, the practice of breathing in pain and breathing out love, as an example. Now, I preached a whole sermon last week on how we work with heartbreak, so I'm not going to dwell here, but I do want to share just one sentence from her description. She writes, Tonglen suggests that the spiritual grown-up is able to stand with others as a comforting presence in their suffering, because that person has the grounding to let pain pass through them into something universal and infinite without doing damage. So being grounded enough to let pain pass through us without doing damage, that seems like a very, very good project to work on. Next on Kendall's list is an attraction to beauty, mercy, and justice. She writes, the ancient Hebrew prophet claimed that the divine requires of us to do justice but to love mercy, and that, it seems to me, is a practice of the Spirit. The attraction toward beauty, order, justice, mercy, and forgiveness that characterizes a spiritual grown-up is an aesthetic preference for living in a world where wholeness prevails, and the willingness to entertain the complex demands of right relationship that move us in that direction. We lean into the longing for a just and peaceful world, and we work each in our own way to make that dream become a reality. Seventh, Kendall lifts up the Jewish tradition of tshuva, the practice of repentance and repair. I think about this in relation to so-called call-out culture and the resistance to wokeness. See, if we are spiritually mature, then when someone comes to us and lets us know that something we've said or done has caused them harm, we receive that act as a gift, as an opportunity to learn and grow. We respect the person's courage. We care about them enough to change. When I notice someone getting defensive or acting as if they're reluctant to accept responsibility for their actions, when they respond with accusations that the person complaining is too sensitive, then I know they haven't done their spiritual work. Usually the root of that defensiveness is a deep sense of shame. Remember Brené Brown, guilt is the feeling we get when we've done something wrong, and it's healthy and appropriate. Shame, meanwhile, is the belief that we are somehow wrong, that something is wrong with us, and shame is toxic. Its antidote is speaking the truth, so back to that practice of confession and repentance. 8th on Kendall's list is care around leading, following, and dissenting. She believes that spiritually mature people accept a call to lead only when they've discerned that they have a unique contribution to make. They follow people whose values are in alignment, looking for ways to support and contribute without being driven by ego, and they speak up if they have issues with leadership rather than walking away. She writes, spiritual maturity enables us to humbly do what is needed, whether as critical supporters, loyal opponents, or leaders with integrity, to respond to the necessities of the moment. Next, Kendall turns to the practice of covenant, which she defines as the ability to enter into serious, meaningful promises of enduring mutuality. In other words, spiritually mature people are not fair weather friends. We stick, we stay, we work things through. 10th on the list is an invocation used by the Lakota Sioux, Mitakuye Oyasin, which means roughly, all my relatives. Kendall uses it to encapsulate a process by which we continually work to expand our tribe. We live into our interdependence by realizing that we're connected to everyone and everything that is, and we allow those connections and relationships to guide our behavior. Next is memento mori, a practice of reminding ourselves that we are going to die someday. So I used to say to my dad, none of us get out of this alive. In its simplest form, a memento mori practice might look like pausing at the end of each day and asking ourselves, if today were the last day of my life, am I happy with my choices? And then we hold our answer to that question with gentleness, without judgment. We can't change the past, but our answers can help inform and shape the future. They can shift the choices that we make the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Last but definitely not least, Kendall names that spiritually mature people need to be fluent in metaphor. So many aspects of life defy simple answers, and often things we know in our hearts, in our cores, can't be put into words. Metaphor gives us a way to approach those truths that exist at the very edges of our comprehension. For example, the Hindu saying that we're waves who have forgotten that we are part of the sea. This hints at a knowing that many mystics and some neuroscientists have pointed to, that we really are concretely a part of everything that is, and that the experience we are having, this life where we are growing a soul, is both unique and individual and part of a much more vast and mysterious process of evolution or transformation. See, the words don't make so much sense, but the metaphor, it resonates, it feels true, to me at least. So in summary, to grow a soul, practice curiosity and humility, work on self-awareness and ask ourselves, how's that working for you? Surrender to reality, lean into awe, wonder, and reverence, honor complexity and ambiguity, be present to suffering, and learn how to pass it on, pass it through without harming ourselves. Believe in and work toward a world of justice, mercy, peace, beauty, and wholeness. Practice repentance and repair. Learn to lead and follow and honorably dissent. Enter into and respect the deep covenants that allow us to build beloved community. Embrace interdependence. We are all relatives. Remember, we are mortal. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? and be willing to play with metaphors and symbols, using them to express unnameable truths. I will say, of all of the things that I do to learn and grow and try to become a better human, the things I do that help me grow and mature spiritually carry the most bang for the buck. By far, actually. Having a strong and healthy spirit has allowed me to survive and thrive in spite of a life-limiting autoimmune disease. Having a strong and healthy spirit has helped guide my intellectual inquiry in ways that have integrity and ways that are fruitful. Having a strong and healthy spirit supports self-compassion and compassion for others, which lies at the heart of the journey toward emotional health and well-being. Having a strong and healthy spirit imbues my life with peace and joy and satisfaction and gives me a sense of purpose and meaning. So, may we continue to nurture spiritual growth in ourselves, in each other, and in our community. May this ever be a place of healing and strengthening, of hope and commitment, of loving and laughing and living life in such a way that we learn, that our souls grow and grow and grow and grow and grow until everyone everywhere can experience peace, joy, satisfaction, and a sense of purpose and meaning. So be it, and so may it be. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Let's join in singing Life Calls Us On. Words by Kendall Gibbons. Music by Jason Shelton.
Here in reverence now we gather for the blessing we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Joy and sorrow make us wise, kin to all that lives and dies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on. Words and deeds of those before us, waken here to keep us strong. Blend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Loyal guides in love and duty, lead us with a trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and right. Honor is their earthly prize. By their work we realize
reading is Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments, steadily growing, and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion, like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. Let's join together in our sung benediction, There is a Love. Please join me in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, that it might flow gently in our hearts, and may light our paths as we use this grace. May it guide our way until we are together again. So how do we grow a soul? Keep learning. Just keep living, keep loving, keep laughing, keep hoping, keep learning. And know that you're held in a community that places that capacity to learn and change and grow at its center. Go forth knowing you are loved. Have a good week. Go in peace. Come back next Sunday.